The following lesson is linked to Learning Outcome 4, Language, and addresses the assessment standard that requires learners to use the comparative and superlative degrees of adjectives and adverbs correctly. This car is faster than that car. Petrol is more expensive than diesel. Attendant A is good, but attendant B is better. Hi there. This is the last lesson in our Effective Grammar series. So far we've covered the different parts of speech, phrases and clauses, genders and diminutives. And now for an exciting, more exciting, the most exciting lesson. We're going to look at degrees of comparison. Let's start with the word comparison, which comes from the verb to compare. To compare means to measure something against something else. Notice how things or people are alike and how they are different. Comparison means examining things in order to see in what ways they are similar. We can compare one thing with another. For instance, this car is faster than that car. Petrol is more expensive than diesel. Attendant A is better than attendant B. Or we can compare a group of things with another group of things. Like these pumps are closer than those pumps. We spend a lot of time in our lives making comparisons, and to do this we use adjectives and adverbs. We're going to start by looking at comparative adjectives. We've defined adjectives before, but here is a reminder. Adjective is a word that tells us more about a noun. Let's get back to the service station example and test our knowledge of adjectives. The red car. A sudden screech. Here are two examples of adjectives. Which two are they? Okay, if you said red and sudden were adjectives, you'd be right. Those two words give us more information about the nouns to which they refer. Red tells us more about the car, and sudden tells us more about the screech. So adjectives tell us more about nouns. But what about adverbs? What is an adverb? An adverb tells us more about a verb. Let's pick out the adverbs. This time there's no image to help you. The car goes slowly. The rain fell softly. In the first sentence, the car goes slowly. Slowly is the adverb because it describes the way in which the car goes. Softly is the adverb in the second sentence because it gives us more information about the verb to fall. It tells us more about how the rain fell. So, now that we know what it means to compare and we have reminded ourselves what adjectives and adverbs are, we're ready to see today's lesson's outcomes. By the end of this lesson, you will be able to identify degrees of comparison and use degrees of comparison. Now let's look at an example of comparison. Perhaps you've heard a conversation like this.
Yesterday was hotter than today.
It's been hot all summer. Actually, this is the hottest summer that I can remember.
If you listened carefully, you would have noticed that 3 versions of the word hot were used. Let's listen again.
Yesterday was hotter than today.
It's been hot all summer. Actually, this is the hottest summer that I can remember.
Did you hear them say, today was hot, yesterday was hotter, this is the hottest summer? This is an example of degrees of comparison. Hot is the first level. Hotter is the next level up, and the very top level of hot is hottest. This is an example of degrees of comparison because there are 3 levels of the word hot. In English grammar, there are technical terms to describe these 3 levels of adjective. The basic level, the level at which you start, is known as positive. In our example, hot would be a positive adjective. Everyone agrees that the day is hot. They are positive about it. The next level is known as comparative. The final level is known as the superlative. The people having the discussion agree that this summer is the hottest ever. It's a super hot summer, as hot can possibly get. So now we've seen and heard an example of degrees of comparison. Let's define this term. Degrees of comparison refer to a contrast of comparison in adjectives and adverbs, usually known as positive, comparative, and superlative. Let's look at another example. Positive, for example, could be large. Comparative would then be larger, and the superlative would be largest. If you look at these terms and the examples there, you will see that the term positive is the way that we use an adjective or adverb where nothing is being compared. We could say the following. Aisha got a large slice of pizza on Tuesday. All we are doing is commenting on the size of the slice of pizza. We could describe a slice like this even if it were the only slice around. If Nhlanhla got a larger slice today, we would be able to compare the sizes of the 2 slices. Right, let's see what information is in these sentences. We have worked out that Aisha's slice was big. We were impressed by the size of it, but we were more impressed by Nhlanhla's slice because it was larger than Aisha's. The word larger shows us that we are comparing Nhlanhla's slice with another slice. By adding the letters ER to the positive form of the adjective, we have formed the comparative degree of comparison. Let's go on to the next degree of comparison, the superlative. Super means over, above, or surpassing. Clearly, the superlative degree of comparison is the most extreme example. There is nothing more it can be. Let's take another look at the pizza slices. Jody got the largest slice I have ever seen. It is quite obvious that although Aisha's slice was pretty impressive, Nhlanhla's slice was more so. When we compare the two, Nhlanhla's slice is certainly larger. Lucky Jody has the biggest slice of all. By adding the letters EST, we make it clear that compared with all the slices in our experience, her slice is by far the biggest. You get what we're doing with degrees of comparison. Let's see if you can do this on your own. Now, if we acknowledge that Mandla is tall, what does that make Thomas? Taller. Which degree of comparison have we used and how did we form it? It was the comparative degree and we formed it by adding ER. Great. We have established that Thomas is taller than Mandla and we formed the comparative degree by adding ER. So Thomas is taller than Mandla. What does that make Booty? Booty is the tallest of the 3 guys. That's the superlative degree, and we made it by adding est to the word tall. So far, all the degrees of comparison we've looked at use the suffixes er or est. But be careful, because this isn't always the case. Hot, hotter, hottest. Large, larger, largest. Tall, taller, tallest. In these sentences, we see that K is good at history. But Komotso is better than K at history. Do you see that we don't say gooder, but better? In the sentence, Sizwe is the best in the class at history. We don't say goodest, we say best. So it's not good, gooder, goodest. It is good, better, best. It is important to learn the right forms of comparison. Another time to be careful of adding the ER and the EST to adjectives is with longer words. You don't say that Miss Benoni is beautiful, Miss South Africa is beautifuller, and Miss Universe is the beautifulest. Instead, the degrees of comparison you would use are beautiful, more beautiful, and most beautiful. You could say that your dad's route to school is quick. Your mom's route is quicker, but your route is the quickest. In these sentences, the forms of quick are all adjectives that describe the routes. Remember, in the beginning of this lesson, we said that you can use adjectives and adverbs in comparisons. Have a look at how the comparisons changes depending on whether the word is used as an adjective or an adverb. If you use the word quick as an adverb to describe how someone ran, you would say that the bronze medalist ran quickly. The silver medalist ran more quickly. But the champion of the race was the gold medalist who ran the most quickly. Right, we now know what degrees of comparison are and how to use them. Last little key point though. When can't you use degrees of comparison? There are times when it doesn't make sense to use them. Let's think about this. Are there things which cannot be more or less? Think about it and make a list with the person sitting next to you. Here are some examples of adjectives that I thought of that can't be more or less. Square, unique, ideal, eternal, full, empty. Now, could something be more or less square than something else? Can there be degrees of squareness? No, actually there can't. By definition, the word square means a four-sided figure with each side being equal. Either something is square or it isn't. One shape cannot be more square than another. If something is unique, it means it is one of a kind. One thing cannot be more unique than another. So unique does not have degrees of comparison. The same applies to these words. And I'm sure you can think of more of them. So next time you compare things, think carefully about what you are saying. To check whether you're on top of degrees of comparison, why not try this task? Fill in the following table of degrees of comparison. Pretty, knowledgeable, dead, slow, and tasty. We interviewed a few learners and asked them how they felt about English grammar. Here's what they had to say.
I think of communication, because if there was a such thing as grammar, we wouldn't be able to communicate. You wouldn't be able to understand what I'm saying, because there wouldn't really be an English language.
I think it's important, grammar is important because you have to know how to construct your words and your sentences in order to get far in life.
Interesting. English is about communication, from the everyday understanding of the people we meet and the places we go to communicating our feelings and emotions in poetry and stories. English allows us to unleash our thoughts into the world that surrounds us. It enables us to touch the minds and souls of others. These various elements of grammar, parts of speech, phrases and clauses, collective names, gender and comparative speech are the building blocks, or puzzle pieces if you like, that allow us to use the English language effectively and successfully. I hope you have enjoyed this time with me. From me, Charlotte, goodbye.